Well, welcome back. Thanks for joining us for our second segment. I would now like to introduce a very special friend of mine and our interview subject for the day, Anita Honingford. Before she sits down, I just have to show this off. I don't know if we can get a tight shot of the belly.
Oh, no.
Anita is representing Birth Network, and she is the perfect example. How many weeks are you?
24.
See, this is what I've learned. It's really not about months. It's about weeks.
That's right. It is.
It's about weeks.
It's weeks. It's not
All about
months.
weeks.
Yeah.
All right, let me give you a hand here.
Oh, thank you.
Get you seated. I'm a little overprotective of her, but she's a friend of mine, so I'm allowed to be.
You are. I appreciate
So
it.
here's what I want to talk about. I want you to tell us the story of the birth of your first daughter, Maria Elena.
Yes, my first daughter, Maria Elena, 6 years ago. I was ecstatic to be pregnant. I've always wanted children, and when I found out, I went out and did what I thought everybody does. You buy your book at what to expect when you're expecting and what to expect each week. And I read those books, and I thought it was gospel. It was the Bible. It was all I needed to know about labor, delivery, birth, everything. So I was prepared. I was ready to have this baby, and my husband and I had decided we were going to go natural. And really my motivation was because I was afraid of needles, and I didn't want to have an epidural. And so that was my true motivation at the moment. So we had a birth plan. We wrote everything out, how we wanted the birth to go, the labor, the delivery, everything. I went to my OB, and I handed my OB my birth plan. And she looked at me and she said, "Okay, I'll put this in your file." And this doctor said to me, "Can I ask you a question?" I said, "Sure." And she said, why don't you want an epidural? Why don't you want pain relief?" And I said, "Well, I want to go natural." And she said, "Would you go natural if you went into the dentist to get a teeth drilled?" And I just kind of looked at her and I was like, "I don't know." And I was confused. I was baffled that this doctor was asking me why I wanted to have a natural childbirth. And she compared it to, not having anesthesia at the dentist. Anyway, fast forward to Labor Day. Everything was normal. I went into labor. We went to the hospital when my contractions were 5 minutes apart, lasting 60 seconds, what the book told me to do. We go to the hospital, and I was 1 centimeter dilated, so I was a little discouraged. But,
how many do you have to get to, for those of us that don't know? How many?
10.
10. Oh, so 1 to 10. Okay.
1 to 10, yes.
So
and
you were in the beginning.
I was in the beginning. And, when you're going through labor and you're in a lot of pain for many hours, and you get to the hospital and they tell you you're only at 1, it's kind of discouraging. You're thinking you're going to be 5, 6, and you're almost there. The baby was a bigger baby. She was 8 pounds, 10 ounces when she was born. And she was posterior. They broke my water. And all of a sudden, I had 1 contraction, and the nurse started running around the room and called in other nurses, and then the doctor came in, and I'm just standing there not knowing what's going on. They're grabbing my arm and giving me an IV, and no one's telling me. No one's saying anything. And my husband's kind of freaking out, and the doctor runs in. He said, the anesthesiologist stat, and everyone's running around me, and I'm just filled with all of this fear and anxiety and just unknowing, just not knowing what was happening. And no one was telling me why they were doing what they were doing to me and what was happening. All I know is they said, the baby's heart tones they're not looking good, they're decreasing, we might have to do a C-section, and they're running around, and the doctor comes at me, lays me down, comes at me with this big probe. He's going to test me, for the baby for blood and its oxygen. A pH test is what it was called. And I didn't know why. I didn't know what was going on, and my husband didn't know, and my husband had to leave the room. And then I just thought to myself, here I am with all this fear and anxiety and, unknowing. And also I'm in a lot of pain. So I kind of went into this, I don't know if you want to call it a trance or an inner body experience, but I kind of left the room mentally. And I started taking deep breaths, slow deep breaths. And a couple times the nurses would say, "Are you still with us? Anita, are you still here?" They thought I had passed out. But I hadn't. I had my eyes closed, and I just needed to tune everyone out because I was so afraid. I had so much fear that something was going to happen.
And I remember you telling me at one point that there was just that point, and it sounds like this is what you're talking about, where you just knew that if you didn't take yourself in hand and if you didn't calm down, that it wasn't going to be okay.
Right.
And that, to me, that really is where you reach for that feminine core.
Yes.
You know.
That was definitely a turning point for me. That was the point in which I thought that I have to take control of myself and my body, because nothing on the outside seems to be helping, and I need to save and protect my baby. However, I can do that. And a minute later, the doctor said, well, your baby's heart tones dropped pretty deeply, and we're very concerned. We're going to take you in for a C-section. The baby's fine now. We don't know what happened, but the baby's okay. But we're going to go in for a C-section anyway.
So they were going to give you, they thought you were going to have an emergency C-section, right?
Right.
Which, in that case, Steve wouldn't even have been able to be in the room.
Right.
But when you calmed down, they were able to give you a normal C-section.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Yes, then everything, seemed to calm down with the baby, and the heart tones went back up to normal. But they still did come back in and do a C-section just for safety reasons. So.
And just so everyone knows, everything worked out. Maria Elena is what, 6 now?
6.
We're
yeah.
so old. Maria Elena is 6 years old. She's healthy. She's robust. She's way too smart. I think she might be smarter than us.
I think so too.
But
That's
yeah.
Scary.
So you did eventually have a healthy child.
I did, absolutely. We had a healthy child, and everything was great. Having the baby was a healthy baby was the outcome that we all wanted.
Now, what you had, what I understand what that experience that you had would be called actively managed childbirth, where it's more of a medical model and there's more people, it's a little bit more intrusive, there's a little bit more interference in the natural process.
Yeah, yes, there was. And that was my turning point into trying to find an organization or someone out there where there's more support during the labor process, where there's not so much intervention, and there's not so much that's happening to you that doctors are doing to you that you're not aware of. And I wanted to be aware. I wanted to arm myself with knowledge.
And how did you discover Birth Network? How did that come to you?
Well, when I got pregnant with my second daughter, I had a friend. It was actually my neighbor. Her name was Sandra, and she was a member of the Birth Network. She was on the board. She actually was president that year. And she had talked to me. She told me about Birth Network. She had told me about a VBAC. I didn't even know what a VBAC was.
What does that mean?
That's a vaginal birth after a cesarean.
Okay.
And I just planned on having a vaginal birth again. I didn't even know there was a term for it, or any kind of restriction. And she told me.
So there is a restriction, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Oh.
Well, and you can only have 2 apparently in the state of Michigan if you want to do it through a hospital.
Oh, so you can only have 2 C-sections after the second. If you have a second C-section,
No,
then you can't.
I'm sorry, you can have a C-section,
Okay.
2 C-sections, and then, let me get this straight, a C-section, and then you can have a VBAC.
Okay.
Okay, but if you have 2 C-sections, they won't
You're
let
out.
you have
Okay.
another VBAC.
Okay.
Or trial for a VBAC. So she introduced me to the Birth Network, and she took me to meetings. We had chapter meetings throughout the area, and I just talked to everyone I could, doulas, midwives, people who had C-sections previously, people who had vaginal births. I read the books that she told me to read. I was a sponge. I wanted to know so much about the information that is out there, and I was blown away about how much stuff that they had out there available for women that I had no idea. I thought there were 2 books, what to expect, and
That was
there's
it.
a lot more than that.
That was the whole section in Barnes
Right.
& Noble or wherever.
Right.
So then with Isabella, you had a doula or a midwife or both? Or
I had a doula and a midwife.
Well,
Yes,
all right.
I was going for the gusto.